You're listening to Faces of Our Cities. I'm your host, Jesse. We're speaking with Ira Klusendorf. Ira and I met 8 years ago at a Christmas party for the North American Camera Company. They hosted a Christmas party every year, usually in between the week of Christmas and New Year's. I had no idea who Ira was. I didn't really know who too many people were. Ira was much more established in the industry than I was. I remember there being like four or five of us standing in a circle and you introducing yourself to me, and I remember thinking like, oh, this guy is like kind of kind of a big deal here. Like everyone knows who Ira is. I should know who Ira is. Turns out Ira was creative director at Steinhafels, a furniture company out of Milwaukee. And we kind of did like a I'll show you my studio if you show me your studio type of thing. And I will say, I can't remember who was first. I think you came to Rockwell's studio because you must have been like, I gotta show you what a real studio looks like, Jesse, because I feel like for as big as Rockwell was, we were definitely bootstrapping it slash like surviving off of like a studio that had been created decades before our time. But Ira, on the other hand, was at Steinhafels and built this amazing creative studio. And I remember going there and just thinking, I had no idea something like this even existed in Milwaukee, let alone for a privately held company. Like, this is incredible and amazing. And we ended up spending about, I don't know, 3+ hours sitting in your office and in your studio and just talking about life and work experience and life experiences. And at the end of it, I remember feeling so like my cup had been filled with positivity and encouragement. My cup was definitely filled to the top. And I felt really great. I don't know how you felt. At that point, I didn't care. I was like, man, I feel great. Like, that was a great conversation.
I would say exactly what you said to you. I remember, so Todd Preetry was our connection. He's the one who brought us
Right.
together at the event. And I was in a fortunate position. I started to know a lot of people, but I was still the little guy in there. So, like, I'm trying to just, grab people, talk to people, and stuff like that. And you're just so approachable. And I remember Todd coming over, and then we had a connection. And then that's kind of, do you
Yeah.
remember what the connection was?
Wasn't it Japanese?
Yes. And then like I was just so interested, like, because you spent time, like, oh, it's so cool. And then like, dude, you're very interesting, man. You just like you have so many backstories and just like your life experience. I mean, that's what I was drawn to. And then I think the other thing too, that the vibe that I picked up, and I think that's how we connected. So I was very big into like trying to pass things on, right? Like invite people into the studio. Cause we talked about the industry, how closed off
Yeah.
it is, and then how hard it is for people to break in. And I was doing workshops at the studio and inviting in people to our production shoots. Like, if it's a
Yep.
college kid, like, dude, come on, like, sit right next to me. Like, let's go. In between, ask questions. Like, because that was hard because, for me getting into it, like, breaking in is always tough, right? And yeah, I remember that. Like, we were
Absolutely.
just chatting about that and the things that you do. And just, it was the giving back. I remember we had a long conversation about giving back. Because it is a
Yep.
tough industry to break into.
Milwaukee is not exactly the biggest market for it either. I was never part of like any of those groups of students coming up. So I remember thinking, gosh, this is just so hard for me to like become friends with all the like
Yeah.
DP guys, right? It was easier for me to find young guys, but it was really hard for me to connect with like some of the like more established industry guys and women in the industry because they kind of all had like their groups. I don't want to say cliques
Yeah.
because I never even got close enough to really understand what was going on. But every once in a while, I did meet someone. This is so weird, but every once in a while, I did meet someone who like let me in on the industry gossip, and I was like, "Oh, I think I'm okay actually being outside of it." Yeah, I think I'll just stick to myself. Yeah, okay, cool. Like I
Yeah,
don't want to be part of that.
yeah. I always felt like I was the outsider as well.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I always felt like I was the outsider too.
Let's get into that a little bit. Let's talk about what your background is, where you came from, what makes Ira Ira.
So I started out in TV news. First job was for an NBC station in the Quad Cities. And I knew that in that industry, like to move up, you got to move. And most likely you're going to move somewhere where you don't want to move. Or so I just kind of threw that factor out and looked for like, where am I going to grow the most? Like where am I going to go somewhere where I'm going to get something out of it and like research and, at that, it was Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma. You got, it wasn't just, given a camera, like you were given gear, a full light kit, going to the MPPA workshop, like all of these things. So I spent, just over 3.5 years there and it was really cool. I've made a lot of mistakes there. And I even think about just attitude of how I was back then there. But I had great people around me and pushed me to be better. And from there, I moved to Milwaukee. So worked at TMJ, and because of that, I'd say I was probably about there 6 months, and got put into the investigative special assignment department, which I thought was the highest position there, and it's an honor to be there. So I got to work on long format stories, investigative
Cool,
pieces,
cool.
which was really cool. And I was very fortunate. And from there, I told stories that changed lives, saved lives, changed laws. Incredible. Like, there's still stories I think of that still bring a tear to my eye, just like that was able to work on and just that impact of that. So, as a young person, I'm very competitive, and for me it was winning an Emmy Award. That was like a life goal. So, I was fortunate to win a few, which is cool. And then my
Oh
other
wow.
bucket list was to shoot the Super Bowl. So I got to be on the field and shoot the Super Bowl when the Packers won the Super Bowl, which was totally cool. And traveled a lot, loved it, and I kind of got to a point where I've done it all, and so like what we talked about earlier of always needing that next thing, and got married, wanted kids. That's very important. Just the kid thing was very important for me, and want to be
Okay.
able to be a dad. And in the TV news industry, that's tough because you're always traveling. I went to work one day at 8 in the morning, and next thing I know, 3 hours later, I'm a flight out to Bosnia and gone for 10 days. So which is cool and fun when you're young, and it's like living life like a rock star. You get to go to so many places, meet presidents of the United States, meet famous people, and meet just really cool, genuine people, and you're telling their story, which is great. And
Yeah.
so that was all good, but I'd done it all, and then just that whole travel, never knowing I was coming home from work. And my wife, she's amazing, and she's doing for her career. I mean, she's literally impacting lives, and she's a psychologist, and she's got
Okay.
a tough job, and she sees patients. So like me jetting out of town and with kids, it's not like she's going to be able to take off, and that she's so it's not fair to her, not fair to her career. And I want to coach my kids' sports. I want to go to the concerts and do all those things that I see that my peers at that time were missing. So it was just aligned right. And from there is a funny story of how I got to Steinhoffels. Um, I had a friend who will remain nameless only because of the circumstance, who came up to me and said, "Hey, I thought he was asking if I freelance." He's like, "I know somebody," and he's like beating around the bush about it. I'm like, "What?" It's like, "Hey, you just need to go to Starbucks right off of 94 on this date and meet someone. You just got to go." And I was the former investigative guy, so I'm like inquisitive and trying to just get hints, figure out what's happening. And it was because Steinhoffels was looking to take their production in house, and it was very quiet. So, on a whim, I went to Starbucks and met Dirk, and from there, that's how I got to Steinhoffels. And then the cool thing about the studio that you mentioned, it was funny because one of his things is be careful what you ask for, because you might have to go do it. So I just had this vision. We had a small little studio, and it was a lot. So they were formerly with an agency, and they wanted to bring in house for cost saving measures and more control of doing things, and that was it. I mean, right away just went in. I was supposed to go in to help with training videos, and that lasted like 30 seconds. When I don't think Dirk fully at that time knew my capabilities, and then when he saw it, I think it was just like boom. So I'd say probably within 3 months, I took over all the commercials and doing writing commercials, all of that. And we had a small little tiny studio, and it was not big enough. And they were doing an expansion to the building a couple years later. So I got to build out a small studio, learn things from that, and then apply that to building out a massive studio. And it was pretty cool, like the foresight that the Steinhoffel family had in understanding and recognizing that that investment just paid off in the long run. Just the capability of what we were able to do. I had run numbers on it. Part of it was photography as well, shooting all the products that they sold and then doing 360s on them so you can spin them. I had calculated that was going to be about a $1.5 million venture and take 3 years to do. And we figured out a system by putting in a turntable and doing
Yep.
that and doing it for, I don't even think that studio cost that amount. And that was just to do the photography aspect of it. And then we have all those built-in video production aspects to it as well. So yeah, so was able to, I just fortunate. It was funny. I know at the end we're gonna talk about a life hack. I'm gonna jump in on one right now. Um,
Okay.
I had planned a good, better, or best, and my best was not big enough. I asked for the Cadillac and was expecting to get the Yugo. They gave me the Cadillac, and I was like, "Dang it! I could have had a Ferrari." So, but that was a pretty impressive studio. Yeah, that was so cool. I don't know how much more I could have, some more space would have probably been it, but yeah, they fully support. They understood it and they fully support it, which is so cool. And then the Steinhoffel family is all about giving back to the community as well. So they allowed me to have those workshops. So we would bring in the film community and like bring workshops. It was so cool, like being able to bring in the director of photography to Chicago Fire, that shot down in Chicago, Jason Crothers,
Mm.
and like being able to just have the whole community come in so we can all learn together. And God, we did two major workshops, and then we did little ones too. It was so cool, and allowing to have other people come into the studio just to watch and be part of it. So cool, like just to be able to do that, and then they allowed me to also teach. So during my lunch break, I taught at Carroll University, directing for the camera. I did that for 3 semesters. Like it was incredible, and just being able to give back, and then like having those connections with the students and even people who I worked with and people in the community. It's so cool because then you can see them growing as well as being able to have some of this that I've been fortunate to be able to have and get to be able to share. That was so cool.
When you think about your work experience up until this point, is this what you had imagined for your life back, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years old? Or what did you tell people when they always ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would you tell them?
Man, like as a kid, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to college. I family of educators, so I was like, hey, the history high school teacher to coach baseball, to be the baseball coach because I played baseball. I was competitive and played in college, and then I got injured. But that was like, okay, that's what I want to do. So from there, I went to Eastern Illinois. When I played baseball, got injured, left the school, went to Eastern Illinois, and it was education, secondary education, history. I was a semester from graduating. All I had to do was student teach, and it hit me. Could I, like, my personality. So could I do this? Like, this is what it came down to. It was during Christmas break. Could I do this for the rest of my life? Like, what's it going to look like in 5 years? And I knew I was going to be bored, right? Like it's learning and developing, like that's all engaging and fun for me. But then once you're settled, it's like, am I going to be able to do this for 30 years to retirement? So that was a moment that I was really reflecting. And I had a friend who challenged me like, what is something you've always wanted to do, but you couldn't think you can do? In high school, we had a radio television class, and I just always thought that was too big. There's no way.
Mm.
Yeah, working in TV, that's too big. And she encouraged me to do it. So I did. I switched majors. Eastern Illinois had a radio television, so communications. Um, so I flew through there, was able to get a degree in a year and a half. And it was cool. Like even my grades, I went from, it's normal college kid to straight A's every class and just you're so engaged, when you're into it. So that's how I got into it and took my first job. And the way that I ended on the backside of the camera was truly money. Could have taken a job in Tupelo, Mississippi for as a reporter for $14,500. And then Quad Cities offered more.
Say you're not that old. $14,000 is not very much, even when you were in college or like graduating college. That must have been like, wait, I went to more school for how much more money or how much less money? I think you might have been able to make more money as a teacher.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I mean, that's a tough industry because, you get paid in being a star, I guess. I don't know, the glamour, but that wasn't why I wanted to do it. So, behind the scenes was fine too. I just want to tell stories, and I love technology aspect of it, right? Having the camera and telling stories through, your eye, is what I loved of it. So yeah, so that's how I got on that side, and I still had that storytelling passion, so it just wasn't the camera for me. Um, and producing and doing all of that, I was fine. I didn't want to be in front of the camera.
Absolutely. Okay, and so now after Steinhafels, you now have gone on to work for another company. I want to say director of marketing. Is that right?
Yeah, I went over to Verlo Mattress as the director of marketing, and last year was promoted to vice president of marketing.
The jump from being in creative to now being kind of the client side. Can we talk about that for a hot second? I think
Yeah.
from most of the creatives I know, like that jump is not a jump that a lot of them ever think of. What was the desire to go from being someone who got to make the creative and be really involved in the storytelling to now being on kind of more like a strategy level and an enablement level versus someone doing it?
I think that's like all the time that's who I was. Even though I had that creative side. The going back to my TV career, I loved finding the needle in a haystack in data. Like that was my skill set. That's what made me good. Finding things like I had a talent. So this is back in the early 2000s. I left there at 2012. So just think about the technology back then. So I had the skill set of finding people who didn't want to be found in the United States. So that was, and then just combing through data to find just like I said, that little needle, that story. Whether it's government corruption or I would say government corruption, but just those like misspending or things like that, like just finding those. I always like that was just I enjoyed that as that aha moment. And I think that kind of transferred like, yes, I had that creative thing of it too, but the other side of it is I wasn't just a creative director. Like I enjoyed creating systems. And that's what I did at Steinhoffels was created a couple of different systems and just being innovative with it. So, like
Yeah.
that's kind of part of that other side of me that a lot of people know me as the creative side, but it's that other side of it. And just being able to grow things and it's a challenge as well. So I got a taste of it when I was at Steinhoffels. It was a hard path because it's hard to take that path from a creative to that side. But I think that I
Sure.
really attribute it to my background of TV news. That's a career that every day you have to become an expert on something that you don't know about. So being a learner, being a life learner for it. So and I think it gives me a different perspective of it, and I think just the mentality of how I come about and approach marketing. is different than your traditional textbook marketer?
Let's get into the other part of this podcast, which is talking about a life lesson or some life hacks that you have, I guess, learned from. This could be so specific to you, it could be so general. Please don't say follow your dreams. Tell us about a lesson that you have learned in your life, and if you're willing, let's share the details of the story
Yeah.
around how you learned it.
You know, I think it's a philosophy. Just looking back at just life in general, and it really revolves around my kids. So I have a 8 and a 10-year old, and what I tried to put to them, growing up, everything felt like it was so far away from you. But the reality of it, it's not. Baseball. So I played baseball, and it's amazing baseball, you hear about how these people, how much better they are than you as a little kid. I was good enough to make, the 12th man on the all-star team. I was good enough to
Mhm.
make it, but wasn't the superstar. And, always just had to work harder to get where I wanted to be or go. And I was a tiny kid back then. So that was part of it. But you think that people are so much better than think professional athletes. Let's like take out Michael Jordan, like just take him out. But your standard professional athlete, you think that they're this much better than you, but that gap is really like right here. And what a lot of it
Mhm.
is, yes, there's natural ability, but it's passion and how much you want to put into it. And I was pretty fortunate. I played baseball and recognized and that's why people are always want to put you down, right? And in life, no matter what, no matter where, whether it's other competitors, other coworkers, people who are want your position or are jealous, they're always putting it, and then they always feel like they make this gap of someone better this much more. It's really not. I mean, I was pretty fortunate in college. I came as a freshman, and I played as a catcher, and I saw it. It felt like everyone else was like this, but the reality of it, it's this to be successful, and it's opportunity. That's really what it's about. You got to put yourself. You hear the athletes say it all the time. You got to be next man up, opportunity. But that's what it is. It's opportunity and being making sure that you get in your position. That when you get your time, go. So that's something that like telling my kids of like I'm going to your dream thing, like follow your dreams, but really go for it. Like, because it's not this huge delta. And I wish someone would tell me that it's really not that huge master delta. It's not. Everyone has the ability to get there. Is you just gotta believe that you can do it and then just put in the work to that. So then I'm going to carry that forward to get off of the follow your dream statement. It
Okay,
kind of
okay.
comes in with I'm really getting enjoyment out of managing people and developing people. I wouldn't say managing people, it's developing people. So at Steinhoffel was able to develop a couple of people and just putting it in. So like as a person, and you'll get this through like the production world, um, I felt like everyone, at least in my career, if you made a mistake, you're out of here, you're fired, right? So it's the fear to fail.
Yeah.
And you know what? Failure is okay. Like, how do you learn? And being able to just be transparent with yourself and being transparent with the people around you, the team that you work with, like, it's okay to say, you know what? I don't know how to do that. Okay, so like let's just go ahead and throw it. Okay, cool. We know where we're at, right? So let's like come together, work together, and figure it out together. So it's
Yeah.
not doing it all, and maybe that's the career that I was in where it was that culture of that. But that's something that for me. So like seriously, like it's okay to not know something. Um, Ask. I see it all the time. People that struggle, they just hold it back, and then how much further you can just jump if you were to just expose yourself like that, just get over it. And you know what that also does is, as where I'm at in my position, being able to be vulnerable to a peer or a person that you're I hate the word managing that your teammate um I mean that brings you closer together so that you're able to work tighter.
I'm really curious about this because I've had plenty of managers in my life. some great, some not great, some that micromanage, some that don't. I'd really like to try to understand what gets a manager to that confidence level to be able to be vulnerable, or that confidence level that they're able to have someone that needs to learn how to do their job working for them, right? Just to put it in a little bit of context, as I got into producing more and more, I became more and more comfortable with having people that maybe weren't like my like top A or B like choice on set, right? Because I knew like I kind of know how to do that job. So like if they get sick or like if they're like an hour late, like I can handle this. I'm willing to try them for the first time. But in the creative industry, this is something that this is part of the reason why like almost like little clicks were made in Milwaukee. It's hey, once you find your person, that is your person. You won't
Ah,
go to a shoot without that DP
yeah,
because maybe you
yeah.
yourself don't like know how to do any of it yourself. That the only way you're successful is with this specific person, and you won't try somebody new. But that's not a great way to live. That creates opportunities for a failed process. And so I guess as someone who has has this life philosophy to like go for it, but then also give space to your people to learn, I guess I mean you're in a role that you don't know things. Like I'm sure like your employee is doing stuff that you don't know how to do. How do you have that confidence to like give that to them? Or like where does that come from? How do you develop that?
That's tough. You know what? I think that's a life lesson. That's something that we're always working on. It hit me when I was at Steinhoffel's. You know, back then it was hard for me to let other people do things because um, afraid of it not being the way that I want it or doing it correctly. It's okay for your team not to do it the way that you want, or it's okay that they fail. Like, it's learning opportunities. Like, you just gotta give yourself space to let mistakes happen. Like, let the mistake happen. Like, don't, like, because that was the thing. It's always want to jump, and I'm a helper. So I want to go in and help, right? I see a mistake about that. I want to go in and jump. It's like, you just got to sit back and just let it happen. Like, yeah, you might know it, but let it happen. And then I think that's where it kind of came in like, oh, it's okay to make an error. And, that's a development opportunity. And, there's also and I know there's like, there's a million ways to screw in a light bulb, right? So it's not just your way. There's other ways. Yeah, it might be the long way, but, then use that as an opportunity to develop and to teach and learn. Um, it's tough. I mean, I still do it now that I want to jump in and I catch myself like, just let it play out. Just let it go. Let it play out. Because if I keep doing this is where I recognize if I keep doing that, jumping in and jumping in and jumping in and saving the day, then you're always going to be saving the day. Whereas, aren't you going to be more productive if your team is able to be able to do all this and learn and grow and be a bigger, better person? That now you can count on them for even more. And quite frankly, you can even take a further step back and let them run projects. Here's another rule, a life rule: control the message. You fuck up, go and control the message. I'll do it. Like
Mm,
if I make a mistake, I go right away. Like, because you'd rather be the person to deliver the message that you made the mistake than someone else coming and telling that, hey, Ira made a mistake. So that was one thing too, is like, I'd go, hey, Dirk, I goofed on this. This is what I was thinking, and this was the outcome. And it's like, okay, would you learn? How would you do it differently? Okay. And then the great thing is because now we've had this conversation and we've dealt with it, that when someone does come, now he is running interference or, has it and understands the problem. Because it's the first person that gets, it's typical life, right? First person who gets the message to somebody owns the message. So,
yeah.
even on that aspect, so that's a life hack right there, man. And I've
Mm,
learned that. I had a buddy when I was like a kid, uh, who would say that, like, own the message. Like, you screw up, just go own it. Like, I never knew, why would he go tell his mom? Like, why? Because you know what? When you do it and have that conversation, it's either that or 2 weeks of punishment. So own the
Yeah,
message, get in front of it. And you know what? That shows something about you too, right? That you recognize that you made a mistake and, that you're taking responsibility. That is huge.
positive things will come out of you owning the message and you like recognizing your shortcoming right away and going and talking to whoever you need to talk about it. If you keep that in and let somebody else either
Yeah.
communicate it or let it eat you up. We all know this. The longer we hold on to a lie, like as a kid, the worse it was always in the end, right? Like, not that we're talking about a lie, but like at this point, it's yeah. If you screw up as an adult, it's like, hey, the longer you try to like keep it to yourself, the more it hurts inside, and the worse
Yeah.
it's gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap this up because I know otherwise we'll keep on talking, and you and I and the whole audience are not interested in the 3 hour episode. But I'm sure we are gonna check in with you in a couple of years because that's what we love to do
Yes.
with these, is check in with people and see where
Yes.
they're at and see what new life lessons they've learned. So, Ira, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything that you do for being a good manager. I hope that your inbox doesn't get flooded with just like resumes now, because it's so hard to find someone who's really actually willing to do that,
Yeah.
and to invest in their people. That I think is what people are looking for now. You can find
Yeah.
an average human manager; they're a dime a dozen. But to find someone who's got the confidence to invest in people, knowing that if they invest too much in them, they will grow beyond their role and need to move out. And that is terrifying for a manager who's not prepared to to have a team to build again, right? They want to be done with it. So anyway,
Yeah.
good luck. Thank you for being that manager. I hope that no one leaves you all at the same time, and I hope you just constantly have an influx of resumes to choose from because people want to be developed by you.